Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. By virtue of the power vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby constitute this congregation of the University of the Free State for the awarding and conferral of qualifications in the faculties of Economic and Management Sciences, Education, Law, the Humanities, and Theology and Religion. I therefore award and confer qualifications on all the candidates presented to this congregation. In addition, I hereby award and confer qualifications on those whose names appear in the program but who are not present here today. Please be seated.
Good morning and a hearty welcome to this specific graduation ceremony. Before I want to give a couple of welcome words and notes and sentences to our graduates this morning, I would like to welcome specific people on the platform this morning. First of all, I'd like to welcome the Chancellor of the University of the Free State, Dr. Khotso Mogele. Welcome to you, sir. We also have in our midst the Chair of our Council, Chairperson of Council, Mr. Willem Louw. Welcome to you. And then we have our guest speaker, which will be formally introduced. But I just would like to, from my side, also would like to welcome Dr. Trevor Manuel, the Vice Secretary Research, Professor Cordy Vatoon. She will be the Program Director this morning. And then we also have the Registrar, Mr. Nakilen Sababa. And then we have some special graduates this morning, the Honorary Doctoral graduates in our midst, Madam Justice Mahupe Molamela, and also Mr. Jeremiah Mafukeng Maketa. Welcome to them as well. Then we have the Chief Director of the Department of Arts and Culture, Mr. Irvin Langeveld, the Regional Head of the Free State and Northern Cape Correctional Services, and also the recipient of the 2018 Chancellor's Distinguished Alumni Award, Gustav Wilson. We also have the Deputy Registrar, Mr. Anban Naidu, and then we have the Campus Principal of the Kwakwa Campus, Dr. Martin Mandiu, a representative from the South Campus, Msegu Setilo, and then we have a representative from the Convocation, Dr. Peter de Tooy, and then we have deans and representatives of deans of the different faculties in our midst as well. So I would like to welcome them all, and they're sitting on the platform. Graduations and graduation ceremonies are, for me, and I believe also to you and your family members, joyous events. It's an occasion of celebration of the achievement of loved ones, and you are here supported by your friends and family and community members. And I often make the statement at ceremonies such as this that although we should always value the dignity of the event, that graduation ceremonies are not church services. It's supposed to be celebratory, but always keep in mind that is also that celebration need to be in a frame of dignity. This morning we have masters and doctoral candidates, and I just want to share 3 specific values that I believe is important for you on your journey, wherever you're going to be working or wherever you are working at this moment in time. Those are values, or sometimes value statements, that is held dearly by the University of the Free State. And the first value is actually something that you already have been grappling with, and that's the value of critical inquiry. Because we believe that when we send out graduates from this university, that value is one of our graduate attributes. Something that, if something is given to you, that you just don't accept it on face value, but you try to understand what it means, and you also try to challenge that. And through that challenge, the reflection, the understanding, you often get a better perception and a better understanding of the particular issue. And that is something that you would have been exposed to in your master's degree and also within your doctoral degree. But I also would like you to carry that sort of specific value of critical inquiry forward in your professional life. The second one is something that is also crucial, that the world is not only about yourself, it's also about others. And how do you actually give back to others? How do you assist others? And we encapsulate that with the word social responsiveness, the service to others. And I think we will make this world such a better world if we all adhere to that specific value of social responsiveness and service to others. And then the final value, which is a value that I think we have picked up and has been challenged in society, not only in South Africa, but other parts of the continent and the globe. And that's the value of integrity. Who you are, what you say, how do you say that, and who do you stand, and what do you stand by, the principles. Because we believe that when we send out graduates from the University of the Free State, we would like to believe that we send out graduates with impeccable integrity that can make a massive difference in society out there. So take those three values. Hopefully you have been exposed to that, but I think that will assist you in your professional career going forward. So from my side again, enjoy the ceremony with us. Also your loved one was that here this morning. And once again, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Peterson. Good morning, colleagues. Congratulations to all the colleagues sitting in the rows with the red jackets. This is such a proud day. I think this is the best day in the university calendar. To all of the graduates, congratulations. It's such an achievement. You must be so proud. And to the guests, thank you for attending the graduation, and congratulations on family members who are graduating, family and friends who are graduating today. The university makes use of official photographers who are present in the hall today. However, areas on campus have been allocated to a number of freelance photographers for the purpose of photographing graduates. These photographers are not accredited by the university, and the university therefore has no control over the quality of these photographs. Those who arrived after the pre-ceremony announcements are asked to refer to the bottom of page 2 in your graduation program. Today is the time to celebrate the achievement of each graduate, and we ask the audience to allow us to hear the name of every single graduate that crossed the stage this morning. We strive to conduct the graduation ceremonies in a dignified manner, and we ask you to refrain from leaving the hall before the end of the proceedings. You're also asked to please keep your cell phones on silence for the duration of the ceremony. This morning, it is my great honor to introduce our speaker, Dr. Trevor Manuel. Dr. Trevor Manuel served as cabinet minister from 1994 to 2014 under the first 4 presidents of our democratic South Africa, Mandela, Mbeki, Motlanthe, and Zuma. He was first appointed to cabinet as Minister of Trade and Industry in May 1994. In April 1996, he became finance minister, steering the South African economy for 13 years as one of the world's longest-serving finance ministers. During his last term in office, Dr. Manuel served as minister in the presidency, responsible for the National Planning Commission from May 2009 to May 2014. During his 2 decades as cabinet minister, he also served as member of parliament, representing the African National Congress in a system of proportional representation. I now call upon Dr. Manuel to address us. We're certainly looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Prof. Toon, Chancellor Dr. Khotso Mokele, the Vice Chancellor, Prof. Francis Peterson, Deputy Vice Chancellors and members of faculty, graduates, family and friends, good morning, goeiemorgen, dumelang. The Chancellor, I'm worried, people in the Free State seem not to greet. Let's try again. Dumelang. Thank you. I'd like to thank the university for the invitation to be here with you today. I want to start with a reminder that South Africa is a young nation. Whatever pre-existed, we became a nation when we first had a democratic election, crafted a constitution, set difficult objectives for ourselves, including having 11 official languages. But it is, the formation of a nation is about according dignity and respect to each other. And so we're a young nation of primarily young people, and so having a graduation in June, which is our youth month, is quite appropriate. But we're a nation born of an intense and painful struggle to secure democracy. It was a nation established with a flourish of enthusiasm about its ability to grow and develop a country premised on inclusiveness. Sadly, in spite of a number of significant achievements, and they're there, we appear to be floundering. Now, the acting dean of theology would forgive me if I say, sometimes when we look at what's happening in the country now, it feels like that period in Exodus where you're kind of wandering in the desert. You know where you need to get to, but you're not quite getting there. And that, I think, is something that we should all be concerned about. So my message to all the graduates today is that they appreciate this recent history and recognize that it offers no laurels to rest on. South Africa has a future that has to be claimed and reclaimed. Our new graduates must be an integral part of not only claiming this process, but also shaping it. This will only happen if they develop a very keen sense, that critical faculty that Prof. Peterson spoke of what ought to be, of what is possible, how far we've strayed from the path of inclusivity, and how we must remedy the gap. This will entail rigorous and repeated questioning and organized action wherever we find ourselves through existing or yet to be formed institutions. I have a sense that we've come to believe in miracles. If one is to consider the commentary on the State of the Nation address delivered by President Ramaphosa last Thursday, the complaint is that it contained no solutions, but States of the Nation address are not meant to bring all of the solutions. They're meant to convene us and give us a way forward. But miracle solutions are not available to solve our problems. What we need is hard work and staying on the right path and confronting that which is wrong. We have clarity about the tasks at hand. It is to build the kind of society that our Constitution commits to. In its preamble, it speaks of commitments to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. It also requires of us to lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law. It requires of us to improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person and build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. Those weren't one-off commitments. They're durable, and they require all of us to engage and understand what this means in our everyday lives. But they are also commitments that are basic, and we have to believe that they're still eminently attainable. Regardless of party political persuasion, we should all accept that these commitments remain and that our commitments should be to the Constitution of our country. In fact, in spite of how people try and say that they don't respect the Constitution, you can't become a member of Parliament unless you pledge allegiance to the Constitution. So it's foundational in every sense of the word. We should also recognize that if we brought together the finest brains in the country again, now, and ask them to craft a set of commitments for the future, it's unlikely that they will come up with any other sorts of commitments than these. These commitments, as I said, will not be delivered through a miracle or through a series of miracles. They must be struggled for, they must be worked for, they must be measured, and they must be won. The adoption of our Constitution merely signaled the beginning of what we believe to be both possible and necessary. It cannot have been the end point. To achieve these objectives requires even more diligence and energy than the struggles that brought us to the point of the adoption of our Constitution. We have nobody but our collective self to blame for our underachievement. My message to graduates today is that you set out to remedy the deficiencies. The National Development Plan reframed the tone of the discourse. It states, and I quote, "To make meaningful, rapid, and sustained progress in reducing poverty and inequality over the next 2 decades, South Africa needs to fix the future starting today." The plan outlines a new developmental approach that seeks to involve communities, youth, workers, the unemployed, and business in partnership with a capable state. I think the adjective is very important. The aim is to develop the capabilities of individuals in the country, creating opportunities for all, unquote. In that crafting, we reframed the role of the citizen with an emphasis on active citizenry. And active citizenry is not voting once every 5 years and waiting and hoping and praying that a government would deliver. It's about the message that we're trying to give to our graduates today. It's about recognizing that we have responsibilities to and in society. Now, in August, we'll mark the 7th anniversary of the handover of the National Development Plan to the President in Parliament. If anything, the conditions have deteriorated over that period. And we should not pretend for a moment that such deterioration is an exclusive gift of one or other political party. We must know them, we must talk about them, because we must remedy them. I want to paraphrase the author Tony Judd in his book, Ill Fares the Land, where he says there's much to be angry about: growing inequalities of wealth and opportunity, injustices of class, economic exploitation, corruption and money, and privilege that obstructs the arteries of democracy. It is insufficient to identify the shortcomings and then retreat indifferent to the consequences. When policymakers do not care, the burden is borne disproportionately by the poor. The democracy that was the object of struggle appears to be deferred at the moment. I'm saying we mustn't lose sight of our history. We need history as a guide, but it's a guide, not a life raft that we cling onto for dear, a life saying, well, we had a glorious past. We must invest in our future in order to seize it. There will be choices that will have to be exercised between the future and the past. The past, however, is a different country to which we cannot return. We can no longer hang on to it either to claim a glorious history or to remedy all of the defects that still linger. There are new struggles and new centers of power. What will become of data into the future? Will it be like land and factories were in the past, where those who own and control the data control the everyday lives of people? How do we engage with data? Understand it and utilize it to extend opportunities and remedy some of the effects of apartheid in public services and in life more generally. We need rational and informed discussions led by people such as our wonderful graduates here today. What South Africa needs, as before, is to ensure that our people have a voice. It has to be a voice that is organized and constant. It cannot wait for expression only at elections. It has to be a voice that understands that our democracy has to be participatory and that the constitutional objectives are non-negotiable. They have to be on a rising floor and measurably so. But the organization of that voice has to be focused on social change. South Africa, especially in the 1980s, was able to engage millions in the struggle for social change through a myriad of activities. Participation and attendant action was a very powerful norm then, but was also fragile. And as activists became involved in tasks related to governance, participation for change in many instances collapsed. Some activists became too comfortable in the new positions they occupied and believed that they could always speak for the people. These attitudes must be dislodged, and this is the task that we plead with you as graduates to fulfill. In the same way, accepting our Constitution requires of us to socialize its contents, to emphasize the founding values that include human dignity, the achievement of equality and the advancement of human rights and freedoms, and non-racialism and non-sexism, which is unique in our Constitution. Targeting these provisions is to develop the transformation agenda that is now as relevant as when we adopted the Constitution in May 1996. This means that we all have to challenge the tendency to divide by race, by gender, and by class. It also means that none of us can turn a blind eye to the indignity that comes with poverty and inequality. Each of the graduates here today is very special. Each can shape a career in contributing to the transformation of society. Transformation should not be a task apart from what happens in their everyday careers. South Africa needs an energy to infuse action. South Africa needs an organized voice. South Africa needs leadership. And it has to have a dominant culture of restlessness, born of the knowledge that we can and have to be better in the service of our people. Cultural norms must distinguish between those who are in it for the service and those who are in it for themselves and money. We know which side has to win. So my plea to all of you graduates today is that we restore the mission of South Africa, and it must become a country for all its people. This means that the skills and capacities acquired here at this great University of the Free State must find application in everyday life. We call on you to convert your knowledge into wisdom, that wisdom into policy, that policy into tangible change that improves the quality of life, especially of the poorest. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manuel. When you spoke about active citizenship, I looked at our promoters and supervisors and thought, well, they're educating the present and future leaders, not just in our country, but in our continent and the world. So congratulations to the supervisors and promoters. To the graduates, for me, the message was work hard and confront what is wrong. Work hard and confront what is wrong. It's a simple message, but so powerful. Dr. Manuel, we thank you very much for attending our graduation and visiting the University of the Free State. This is a song, This Is Me, is a song performed by Kiela Settle for the film The Greatest Showman. Released in October 2017, the song won the Golden Globe Award for the Best Original Song at the 75th Golden Globe Awards and was nominated for an Academic Award for the Best Original Song at the 90th Academy Awards. Performing This Is Me from The Greatest Showman, arranged by Anton Esterhuizer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the UFS Arts Communities under the direction of Angelo Moki, accompanied by the Graduation Instrumental Ensemble.
I'm not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken part. I've learned to be ashamed of all my scars. Run away, they say, no one will love you as you are. But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down,
Thank you very much to the UFS Arts community and the Graduation Instrumental Ensemble. I saw 2 kids in red just having an absolute jewel in the back, so someone enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I now call upon the Acting Dean of Law, Professor Karen van Merle, to present the diploma candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to award diplomas to the candidates that I introduced to you. Yes, but I'm from the Faculty of Law. This is Faculty of Economic Science. So there's no diploma? Okay, so it seems as if there's no diplomas from the law faculty to award. So then you'll take this on the...
Yes. I now call upon the Dean, Economic and Management Sciences, Professor Henry Kroukamp, to present the master's candidates in his faculty. He will be followed by the representative deans of the subsequent faculties.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer qualifications on the candidates that I introduced to you. Master of Accounting, Lombard M. Master of Business Administration, Bosiu L.F. Boetus C.M. Brerenkamp J.M. Daniels L.I. De Wet A.H. Gore L. Hofmeier T.S. Kwakwa E.K. Lepolisa L.M. Thank you. Maposa H. Oosthuizen V. Pulanka T.J. Raubenheimer L.J. Reclane A. Scolgoero, JJR. Strydom, JA. Tabalala, TLM. Master of Commerce with specialization in accounting. Kotze Veer. Masters of Commerce with specialization in business management. Botma L. Ntube BN. Strampe SA. Master of Commerce with specialization in financial economics and investment management. Genekile L. Master of Development Studies. Besaidnout L. Tshenzemba BN. The Lange A and the degree with distinction. Iyambo B. Malumane MA. Mamba V. Mulefe PG. Namabanda EM. Ndeleki CN. Pemba P and the degree with distinction. Ramanyemi ND. Master of Industrial Psychology. Jacob CTG and the degree with distinction. Lebuso ATV. Van der Merwe M. Master of Public Administration. Your card, Mr. Dube. Dube V. Tusane MB. Ja, cool. I now call upon the Dean of Education, Professor Luis Ojita, to present his master's candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer qualifications on the candidates that I introduce to you. Master of Arts in Higher Education Studies. Benda T.B. and the degree with distinction. Jacopu C.N. Nobongoza V.E. Stora J.A. Sie T. Master of Education with specialization in Curriculum Studies. Baloi Mutibedi S.L. Fair D.L. and the degree with distinction. Lefete I.P. Mubara Z. Muduka SNP. Muloi MD. Ralibisi MD and the degree with distinction. Ruot G.J. Master of Education with specialization in Education Management. Mafoso N.N. Mlangeni L.S. and the degree with distinction. Mweketsane MP. Sonop S.E. Stassen L. and the degree with distinction. For the Master of Education with specialization in Policy Studies and Governance in Education. Litsie J.M. Majola K.M. Mutebi R. Paulse J. For the Master of Education with specialization in Psychology of Education. Venter, EP, and the degree with distinction. Chancellor, I now call upon the Acting Dean, the Humanities, Professor Robert Peacock, to present his master's candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer qualifications on the candidates that I introduced to you. Master of Arts in Communication Science, Khadebe DLT, Master of Arts in Communication Science with specialization in corporate and marketing communication, Mabula RM, Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology, Van der Wateren M, Master of Arts in Drama and Theatre Arts, Van den Berg A, Master of Arts in Governance and Political Transformation, Matibi MN, Mlata MG, Moshori JM, Niamende MM, Rakare MP, Rakare MP, Silwane NDF, Van Rooyen JS, Master of Arts with specialization in advanced business, Maumela RM, Master of Arts with specialization in Afrikaans and Dutch, Kombrink K, Kok HJJ, Rood AJ, Stein A, Master of Arts with specialization in criminology. Phillips A.R. and a degree with distinction. Master of Arts with specialization in English. Chang Ji with distinction. Mshlongo P.S. with distinction. Stein S. and with distinction. Master of Arts with specialization in history. Motswane M.R. and with distinction. Master of Arts with specialization in political science. Jacobs T.M. Letube K.M. Visagie H. Master of Arts with specialization in Sesotho. Skozana E.M. Master of Arts with specialization in South African Sign Language. Leroux A. Master of Governance and Political Transformation. Motswane O.N. Master of Social Science in Clinical Psychology. Lorden J.S. Shirima K.M. and a degree with distinction. Nell W. Spengler E. Master of Social Science with specialization in criminology. Pillay S. Popheim JP and a degree with distinction. Master of Social Science with specialization in sociology. Mavundla B. Master of Social Science with specialization in psychology. With in GH and a degree with distinction. Master of Social Work. Jones Cockrell, AA. That's all, thank you. Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to present the Dean's Medal to the recipient that I introduced to you. Having obtained a Master of Arts in Africa Studies, she's also the student who achieved the best overall results in respect of a master's degree in the Faculty of the Humanities during 2018. Mr. Chancellor, I present Michelle Notling. I now call upon the Acting Dean of Law, Professor Karen van Merle, to present the master's candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer qualifications on the candidates that I introduced to you. Okay, so now we have the diplomas, it seems. Postgraduate diploma in estate planning. Mays, JP. Master of Laws with specialization in constitutional law and legal philosophy. Alexander N. with distinction. Master of Laws with specialization in criminal law. Taba SV. Zazo GR. Master of Laws with specialization in criminal and medical law. Saintley PE. Master of Laws with specialization in financial planning law. Mans T. Master of Laws with specialization in international economic law. MacDonald J. with distinction. Miller BM. Mokitimi NMF. Senti SE. Master of Laws with specialization in labor law. Hinkerman A. Gometsi LF. Liu A. Ntene LG. Sehapi JF. Master of Laws with specialization in law of business entities. Adriaanse RF. Diba TD. Maope TJ. Van der Merwe M. Master of Laws with specialization in mercantile law. Mavuso K. Mbale VP and a degree with distinction. Tsitsonge AI. We now have Master of Laws with specialization in private law. Harms VE. Uester JG. Carla SN. Molense S. That's it. I now call upon the Acting Dean, Theology and Religion, Professor Rantau Letsosa, to present his master's candidate.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer qualifications on the candidate that I introduced to you. Master of Arts in Theology with specialization in Bible translation. Braithwaite, ML with distinction. Master of Divinity. Fori H with distinction. Freeman HY. Harper HF. Janse van Rensburg R. Jonker NF. Mabie S. Skuman SJL. Snyder JN. Soga MA. Swanepoel D. Master of Reconciliation and Social Cohesion. Kotsie L. Make TC. Master of Theology with specialization in missiology. Tau OI. Master of Theology with specialization in New Testament. Van Wyk M with distinction. Master of Theology with specialization in practical theology. Jansen van Rensberg, LI. Molaola BS. Master of Theology with specialization in religious studies. Mokhutso J. Tinani JS. Master of Theology with specialization in systematic theology. Tloati S. Jordan AD. Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to present the Dean's Medal to the recipient that I introduced to you. Having obtained a Master of Arts in Theology with specialization in Bible translation, she is also the student who achieved the best overall results in respect of a master's degree in the Faculty of Theology and Religion during 2018. Mr. Chancellor, I present Megan Leslie Braithwaite to you. I now call on the Dean of Education for the Dean's Medal.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to present the Dean's Medal to the recipient that I introduced to you. Having obtained a Master of Education with specialization in curriculum studies, she is also the student who achieved the best results overall in respect of a master's degree in the Faculty of Education during 2018. Mr. Chancellor, I present Deborah Lynn Fair. Yes. Can we call the Dean their doctorate? Yeah.
I now call upon the Dean, Economic and Management Sciences, Professor Henry Kroukamp, to present the doctoral candidates in his faculty. He will be followed by the representative deans of the subsequent faculties.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer doctoral degrees on the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Business Administration. The candidate is Gazella Moses M. The promoter, Dr. Vermeulen, with a thesis, The Alignment Between Corporate and Business Level Strategies in South African Public Entities.
With the thesis, The Alignment Between Corporate and Business Level Strategies in South African Public Entities, the candidate contributes to knowledge of strategy alignment from the perspective of management practice. The results and recommendations serve as an indication of the value of strategy alignment, leadership, organizational culture, and corporate controls to improve the organizational performance during strategy implementation. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Moses Mongezi Gazella.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Business Management. Benedict Kaiti E. with a thesis, The Influence of Environmental and Individual Factors on the Growth Intentions of SMMEs in the Free State. Promoter, Dr. Johan van Zyl. Co-promoter, Dr. Jacques Nel.
With her thesis, The Influence of Environmental and Individual Factors on the Growth Intentions of SMMEs in the Free State, the candidate contributes to scholarship in entrepreneurship, focusing on how environmental and individual factors affect an entrepreneur's intention to grow or not to grow his business. Using a quantitative methods approach with a sample of 354 SMME entrepreneurs, the study revealed a lack of market demand, subjective norms, locus of control, excitement, strategic choice, attitude, and perceived behavioral control significantly influenced the growth intentions of SMME entrepreneurs in the Free State. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Ekaiti Elsie Benedict.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Computer Science. Candidate Wynand Nel with a thesis, The Value of Brain-Computer Interface Measurements in Computer Usability Testing when Using Ambiguous Search Queries, a randomized, controlled, crossover study. Promoter, Dr. L. de Wet. Co-promoter, Professor R. Schall.
With his thesis, The Value of Brain-Computer Interface Measurements in Computer Usability Testing when Using Ambiguous Search Queries, a randomized, controlled crossover study, the candidate addressed user frustration and negative emotions caused by large result sets when ambiguous search queries are entered in search engines. Supplementing traditional measuring methods, such as observations and questionnaires, with measuring the user's emotional states objectively with the aid of a brain-computer interface while they were performing ambiguous search queries, added value to usability testing during web search, thus providing additional insight into user experience measurement. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Wynand Nel.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in development studies. Candidate Jorge Oliver T. with a thesis, Students' Experiences of and Perspectives on Disadvantage, a case study at a South African university. Promoter, Professor Melanie Walker. Co-promoters, Professor M. Wilson Stradom and Dr. M. Hübner.
With his thesis, Students' Experiences and Perspectives on Disadvantage, a case study at a South African university, the candidate makes a distinctive contribution empirically and theoretically to national and international scholarship on advantage and disadvantage in higher education, in how it enables or disables opportunities for all students to access, participate, and succeed. The findings demonstrate the multidimensionality of disadvantage and advantage and how dimensions might intersect to marginalize or enable students. Overall, the wider the capability set, argued by Dr. Oliver Gore, the more advantaged students are. Conversely, the narrower the capability set, the more disadvantaged the student. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Oliver Tafadzwa Gore.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in development studies. Candidate Martinez Vargas Carmen with a thesis, Democratic Capabilities Research, an undergraduate experience to advance socially just higher education in South Africa. Promoter, Professor Melanie Walker. Co-promoters, Professor M. Wilson Stradom and Dr. N. Nkolma.
In her thesis, Democratic Capabilities Research, an undergraduate experience to advance socially just higher education in South Africa, the candidate makes a socially creative, ambitious, and original contribution to national and international debates on participatory research, knowledge production, and decoloniality in the higher education context. In doing so, the inquiry links the capabilities approach, participatory approaches, and decolonial ideas to democratize knowledge as a way to advance social justice. The findings show the importance of democratic participation and epistemic plurality in knowledge production to advance democratic research processes and more social justice. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Carmen Martinez Vargas. I'm doing the next and the rest.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in development studies. Candidate Matinda Sophia with a thesis, The Role of Technical and Vocational Education and Training in Women's Empowerment, a Capabilities Perspective. Promoter, Professor Professor M. Wilson Stradom. Co-promoter, Professor Melanie Walker and Dr. F. Mkandanzi.
In this thesis, the role of technical and vocational education and training in the empowerment of women, a capabilities perspective, The candidate makes a novel and rigorous empirical and conceptual contribution to debates regionally, nationally, and internationally on the benefits of technical and vocational education and training in the lives of women students. Findings from the study recommend education that enhances the opportunities and freedoms that women students have reason to value, their capabilities and functionings, which may contribute to women's empowerment through education and to more sustainable human development goals in society. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Sophia Matenda.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in development studies, candidate Masiba Precious, with a thesis, Social Work Education and Professional Well-Being in South Africa, a Capability Approach, promoter Professor M. Wilson Strydom, co-promoter Professor Melanie Walker and Dr. A. Keat.
With her thesis, Social Work Education and Professional Well-Being in South Africa, a Capability Approach, the candidate makes an original, significant, and rigorous empirical and conceptual contribution to national and international scholarly debates on the private and public benefits of university professional education. The findings show the importance of foregrounding individual and collective human development in and through higher education. How professional well-being could be fostered through social work education, notwithstanding wider constraints, and the value of a capability-based evaluation of professional well-being freedoms and achievements. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Precious Mseba.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in development studies, candidate Rushwa Aneshu Sam with a thesis, Multidimensional Student Poverty at a South African University, a Capabilities Approach, promoter Professor M. Wilson Strydom, co-promoters Professor Melanie Walker and Dr. A.V. Ngene Akbendayin.
With his thesis, Multidimensional Student Poverty at a South African University, a Capabilities Approach, the candidate makes an especially original and significant empirical and theoretical contribution to the pressing challenge of student poverty in South Africa. Further, the candidate makes an innovative methodological contribution to multidimensional student poverty measurement through the design and operationalization of a multidimensional student poverty index. The findings foreground the dimensions and indicators of student poverty and offer actionable recommendations that policymakers, institutions, and individuals can effect to alleviate the problem of multidimensional student poverty. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Anesu Sam Ruzwa.
Yes, I'll read it. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in economics. Candidate Divenagers Celia Jacoba with a thesis, The Design and Validation of an Economic Mathematic Proficiency Test for First-Year Economics Entrance. Promoter, Dr. J. N. Kaiser. Co-promoter, Dr. J. Kutsia.
With her thesis, the design and validation of an economic mathematical proficiency test for first-year economics entrance, the candidate develops a measuring instrument that allows economics departments the opportunity to identify first-year students most likely to succeed in the subject. Her contribution argues that a broader and more inclusive measurement of maths proficiency should occur that considers attitudinal dimensions along with the traditional analytical-only skills. In doing so, a more pervasive approach is utilized that does not discriminate against students entering universities without the maths requirement to study economics. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Cecilia Jacoba Dievenage.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in economics, candidate Van der Merwe Ivan with a thesis, Financial Stress Indices, Early Warning Signaling and Macroprudential Policy in South Africa. Promoter, Professor Philippe Burger.
With his thesis, Financial Stress Indices, Early Warning Signaling and Macroprudential Policy in South Africa, the candidate contributes towards macroprudential policy development in South Africa. Conceptually, a framework for systemic risk is proposed as guideline for macroprudential policy. Empirically, the use of financial stress indices, both as an indicator of systemic risk and as part of early warning signaling models, is evaluated. Results suggest that these stress indices and early warning models could be useful additions to the South African Reserve Bank's macroprudential policy framework. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Ivan van der Merwe.
Mr. Chancellor, I now call upon the Dean of Education, Professor Luisa Gita, to present his doctoral candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer doctoral degrees on the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in comparative education and education management. Candidate Herman Walter Terence. Promoter, Professor Willie Nell, posthumous. With his thesis, A Performance Management Approach for Provincial Office-Based Educators, the candidate contributes to the continuous transformation of the performance management system for office-based educators. He successfully employs an interpretive design that triangulates a literature study, document analysis of juxtaposed public performance management systems and frameworks, and semi-structured interviews with relevant officials to extract positive elements that are included in his suggested approach. The examiners acknowledge the contribution that the suggested approach can make to improve employee performance management in the public sector. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Walter Terence Herman. Candidate Mukoni Matseo Pietrus, promoter Professor Molebatsi Melton Nkwan.
With his thesis, Creating Sustainable Learning Environment Through Effective Teachers' Personal Growth Plans, Development Strategy, The candidate developed a strategy for creating a sustainable learning environment for teachers at a school. The study is located within a critically emancipatory research theory using participatory action research as a research approach. The data was analyzed through textual-oriented discourse analysis, discursive praxis analysis. The findings of the study show a need for inclusive planning for professional teacher development and indicates how continuing professional teacher development can be implemented and sustained effectively by diffusing power differentials among stakeholders. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Matteo Petrus Mukoni.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in curriculum studies, candidate Chimbi Godsend Tawanda. Promoter, Professor L.C. Jita. Co-promoter, Dr. Kudakwashe Mapeter. With his thesis, Patterns of Classroom Practice and the History Curriculum Reforms in Zimbabwean Secondary Schools, the candidate contributes to scholarship on curriculum reform, policy implementation, and their relationship to classroom practice. The findings of the study debunk the commonly held myth that teachers are naturally resistant to change and are saboteurs who undermine reform policies, and instead suggest that while inadequate knowledge and lack of skill may undermine change in many classrooms, it does not by itself create sufficient conditions for non-implementation of the curriculum reforms by teachers. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Godsend Tawanda Chimbi. Candidate Mandi Teresa Blandina, promoter Professor Flippy Low.
With her thesis, the influence of teacher pedagogical practices on learner transitions in English medium classrooms from grades 3 to 4, the candidate contributes to knowledge production on learner transitions in English medium classrooms. The candidate applied Bernstein's sociological theory and Bronfenbrenner's ecosystemic theory to explore teachers' pedagogical practices. The research found that grade 3 teachers were more personal and interactive, whilst grade 4 teachers were more distant and followed a one-size-fits-all pedagogical approach. The study suggests that the transitioning challenges resulted from distributional injustices in learning and factors within the environment structured through power and control. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Blandina Manda Teresa.
Thank you. Candidate Masvove Thomas, promoter Dr. Mweketse Musia, co-promoter Professor Javi Dutoy. With his thesis, investigating opportunities to learn created for electrical engineering students at Northern Cape Urban TVET colleges or college, the candidate contributes to the concept of opportunities to learn in the teaching and learning of electrical engineering studies at a TVET college in relation to lecturers' endeavors to improve the students' classroom performance. Using a mixed method research and case study approach with a sample of 101 N1 electrical engineering students and their lecturers, The study advocates for more learning-centered opportunities which result in students actively creating knowledge through authentic experiences. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Thomas Masvove. Candidate Mutumburanzo Julius Whitmos, promoter Professor Loiso Jita, co-promoter Dr. Mweketsi Musia. Apologies. Co-promoter Dr. Tutugile Jita. With his thesis, Instructional Leadership for the Infant Department in Zimbabwean Primary Schools, Perspectives and Practices of Teachers in Charge, the candidate contributes to scholarship on instructional leadership in the early childhood development sector, or what is called the infant department in Zimbabwe. The study argues that while TICs are making strides in promoting learning achievement, it is the less established role of TICs in mobilizing instructional resources and the historical lack of institutional support that may continue to undermine the efforts to improve learning achievement in the infant departments. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Julius Whitmos Mutumburanzo. Candidate Ralebisi Lirato Matilda. Promoter Professor Loiso Sijita. With her thesis titled Integrated Curriculum in Lesotho, Exploring Primary School Teachers' Classroom Instructional and Assessment Practices, the candidate contributes to scholarship on curriculum development and policy, focusing on sense-making and implementation by teachers during instruction and assessment. Although seemingly positive about the curriculum reforms, teachers mostly enacted classroom routines that were contrary to policy. Ralebisi argues that the disjuncture between teachers' understanding of a policy and the subsequent off-target implementation in their classrooms are attributable to contradictory policy messages, confusing curriculum content organization, and underdeveloped guidelines on classroom routines. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Lirato Matilda Ralebisi. Candidate Muyengwa Barnabas, I'm going to get this right. Promoter, Professor Loiso C. Jita. Co-promoter, Dr. Tutugile Jita. With his thesis, The Context and Practice of School-Based Mentoring of Pre-Service Teachers in Zimbabwe, the candidate contributes to scholarship on teacher education and student mentoring, focusing on how school teachers outside of universities play a critical role as co-lecturers of university education students. The principal thesis of a study is that the context influences the mentoring practices. And at the same time, mentoring practices also shape the mentoring context within which school-based educators continue to punch above their weight in helping university students to learn to become teachers. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Barnabas Muyengwa. Candidate Nzala Sikanse Abina. Promoter Dr. Mariette Kuhn.
With his thesis, Insights on the Teaching of English FAL in Overcrowded Intermediate Phase Classrooms, the candidate contributes new knowledge on a crucial issue in improving the literacy levels in South Africa. This is a qualitative study provides a firm basis for continued research on the issue. Role players should heed the argument that the education fraternity should invest more in the training and development of pre-service and in-service teachers to overcome this specific challenge presented by the situation. Failure to do so will lead to continued poor learner performance. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Sekansi Abiner Nsala.
Thank you. Candidate Sengai Walter. Promoter, Professor Matsidiso Mokhele Makhalwa.
With his thesis, Teachers' Perspectives on 2166 and 2167 History Curriculum Reforms, an explanatory study of Honorary Province, the candidate contributes to the scholarship on curriculum reform, focusing on how history teachers perceive the changes in their subjects. Employing a qualitative approach, this study presents the argument that despite the general view that syllabus reforms are essential for the improvement of education, many teachers express dissatisfaction with their diminished involvement in curriculum reform programs and hope to be more actively involved since they are at the chalk phase. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Walter Sengai.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in higher education studies, candidate Olubenga Adeneyi Olomuyiwa. Promoter, Dr. Mweketse Musia. Co-promoter, Dr. Nixon Tace.
With his thesis, Creating Opportunities to Learn through Work-Integrated Learning in Technical Vocational Education and Training, the candidate presents an argument that opportunities to learn embedded in workplace can only translate into educational outcomes on the basis of alignment of curriculum objectives, operational demands, and student personal characteristics. The findings of the study has been accepted for publication in an international journal. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Olibanga Adrebipe.
Candidate Makai Pule Isaac. Promoter, Professor Willie Nell Posthumous. Co-promoter, Professor Andre Kiet.
With his thesis titled Theories of Change, Steering Transformation at the University of the Free State, a conceptual analysis, the candidate contributes significantly to the emerging field of higher education transformation studies. His focus is mainly on disclosing change theories that are at play in the transformation project and trajectory of the university. The two most prominent theories that emerge as explanatory frames are action theory and survival is optional. Amongst others, the conclusion is drawn that university as generators of knowledge can do much better if their transformation processes are guided by explicit theoretical considerations. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Pule Makai.
Candidate Mudau Chimagadzo Selina, promoter Professor Sichaba Mahlomahulu, co-promoter Professor S.E. Likalakala Mokhele, with her thesis, Enhancing Self-Regulation Among Teenage Mothers, a University Community Engagement Approach. The candidate contributes knowledge on promoting social justice and transformation while enhancing self-regulation among the marginalized teenage mothers, using participatory action research through engaging the university bricolage theoretical framework, provided multiple methods, multi-paradigms, and theories which the candidate utilized, such as peer meetings, mixed group meetings, general community meetings, and self-reflections to identify self-regulation challenges among teenage mothers through critical dialogue. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Chimagadzo Selina Mudau. Candidate Nkwera Jennifer Chipungahelo, promoter Professor Neil Roos, co-promoter Dr. Buitumelo Moreng.
With her interdisciplinary thesis, Some Subaltern Perspectives on Tanzanian Post-Colonial Education and the Making of the Nation, 1960 until 1980, the case of Iringa District Municipality, the candidate contributes to understanding post-colonial education reform processes by focusing on the experiences of ordinary people in Iringa, using qualitative methods and subaltern theory that advocates history from below. She makes women and girls' everyday stories an important part of the history of post-colonial educational reforms in Tanzania. And her thesis is as much about gender in independent society as it is about histories of schooling. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Jennifer Chipungahela Nkwera.
Candidate Tiele Tsepo, promoter Professor Mulebatsi Milton Nkwane, co-promoter Professor Sichaba Mahlomahulu.
With his thesis, Technological Skill Transfer Framework Amongst Emerging Farmers and Adult Education Perspective, the candidate made a contribution to the scholarship of farmers' agricultural education and extension. The result of the investigation served as an attempt to find a solution to the current technological skill transfer and is not in line with the adult education policy. The study demonstrated how agricultural extension approaches could be beneficial as a pedagogic resource in the teaching and learning of emerging farmers by virtue of toning down the discursive practices of the intelligentsia dispowering themselves.
Thank you. Candidate Tladi Hosana, promoter Professor Mulebatsi Milton Nkwane, co-promoter Professor Sichaba Mahlomahulu.
With his thesis, The Implementation of a Problem-Based Learning Towards a Sustainable Learning Environment at a Higher Education Institution, the candidate focused on problem-based learning as a pedagogic practice that seeks to develop proficient critical thinking, pragmatic students. The rationale was to challenge the conventional pedagogic approaches. It is interrelated to the transformational agenda, which is denoted as a sustainable in learning environment. The study was informed by the critical emancipatory research paradigm using a participatory action research. The data was analyzed using narrative analysis, critical discourse analysis, thematic analysis, and frequency analysis. The study concluded that problem-based learning had a high appeal in the development of a sustainable learning environment and contributing to social justice and transformation. Vice Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Kosana Tladi.
Candidate Tumubwene Nyakato Philippa, promoter Professor Loiso Sijita, co-promoter Professor Thierry Lucia.
With her thesis, Physical Space and Transformation in Higher Education, the case of the University of the Free State, the candidate engages with social space to produce context-dependent knowledge for transformation, grounded in, and that refers to the realities of the everyday in a higher education institution. It is noteworthy that while the origins of this study predate student movements like Rhodes Must Fall, or on the UFS campus, Stain Must Fall, the latter movements, however, illustrate the significance of the implications of space and objects in space for transformation in higher education. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Nyakato Philippa Tumubwene.
Candidate Shushu Hamilton Hansen, promoter Dr. Lynette Jacobs, co-promoters Dr. Kevin Taser and Professor J.M. Reneke.
With his thesis, A Framework on Democracy to Critically Evaluate School Governance Practices and Policies in South Africa, the candidate provides contemporary and critical introspection regarding how school governance in South Africa reflects democracy. Inter alia, focusing on the work of African thinkers, he developed a framework on democracy against which policy and practice can be measured. He found that the realization of democracy is not only dependent on certain democratic principles, but it also requires an environment conducive to democracy. If elements, including the condemnation and rejection of corruption, promotion of deliberation and dialogue, and the display of trust are not present, democracy is obstructed. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Hamilton Hanson Shushu.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Psychology of Education, candidate Herman Tracy, promoter Professor Willinell Posthumous. With her thesis, The Development of Reading for Cross-Curricular Learning at a Special School, a Community of Practice approach, the candidate makes a valuable contribution to the disciplinary body of knowledge in the field of reading instruction and the growing need to provide school-based professional development opportunities for teachers. The study thematically analyzes, through focus group discussions, how a community of practice approach to teacher professional development can develop reading for cross-curricular learning in special schools. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Tracy Hammond. Chancellor, I now call upon the Acting Dean, the Humanities, Professor Robert Peacock, to present his doctoral candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting to you to confer doctoral degrees on the candidates I present to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy in Music, Halberg E. P. And the promoter is Dr. F. D. de Villiers.
With the thesis, Musicians' Sensory Patterns in Relation to Their Primary Musical Instrument, the candidate makes an original scholarly contribution involving musicians, their sensory patterns in musical instruments. Implementing a quantitative criterion group design, 1,327 musicians from across the world were sampled. Overall, musicians demonstrate higher auditory modulation, visual modulation, and proprioceptive discrimination than the norm, indicating superior attentiveness to music stimuli, with also quicker response to auditory, visual, and proprioceptive input. For the first time, character traits commonly found among musicians are now connected to sensory processing. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Elsabie Petronella Halberg.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Africa Studies, Bishi G. And the promoters, Professor I.R. Fimister and Dr. T. Niyamandu.
With his thesis, Kith and Kin, White Rhodesia's Settlers' Relations in Britain, 1939 to 1980, the candidate explores the historical significance of kith and kin ties between Rhodesian white settlers and Britain between 1939 and 1980. By delineating ideas of imperialism, loyalism, patriotism, whiteness, and Britishness within settler society, the study engages both with processes of decolonization and the historiographies of identity. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. George Bishi.
Gwande V.M. The promoter, Professor I.R. Fimister. Co-promoters, Dr. T. N. Yamunda and Dr. A.M. Msiba. With his thesis, Organized Secondary Industry and the State in Zimbabwe, 1939 to 1979, the candidate explores policy proposals and political pressures exerted by organized chambers of industry. The resulting picture is quite different from established views of the subject, inviting reconsideration of the process of import substitution industrialization between the Limpopo and the Zambezi. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Victor Muche-Neripi Gwande. Human C.I., Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Africa Studies. The promoter, Dr. S. Kaywood. Co-promoters, Professor J.G. van As, posthumous, and Professor L.L. van As. With her thesis, yes.
With her thesis, Post-Colonial Materialities, a
critical deep ecology of IKS in the Okavango Panhandle, Botswana, the candidate makes a remarkable contribution to scholarship on indigenous knowledge systems, deep ecology, and post-colonial critique by constructing a critical deep ecology of the indigenous knowledge systems in the Okavango Panhandle, Botswana, by applying grounded theory within the parameters of case study methodology. The research innovatively uses the idea of breaking rank, where the researcher shares a participant role with the research community, while the contextualization of the Okavango Panhandle as research context reveals an exceptional grasp of its history, culture, commerce, politics, class hierarchy, ecology, and conservation condition. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Christina Isabella Human.
Candidate J.T. Kufandirori, promoter Professor R.D. Philosoph, co-promoters Dr. L. Pasimies and Dr. A. Msiba.
With her thesis, Conflict and Cooperation, New Farmers in Zimbabwe 2000 to 2015, the candidate explored how lawlessness and the violence which affected the white farmers during the fast-track land reform program has in turn adversely affected the new farmers and settlers long after the white farmers were evicted. As she illustrates, the lack of clarity over ownership and belonging negatively impacted on many new farmers' ability to make a success of their land allocations and has resulted in continued conflict in resettlement areas. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Joyline Takudza Kufandirori.
Candidate Sibange Ntube, promoter Professor R.D. Philosoph, co-promoters Professor I.R. Fimister and Dr. I. Mike.
With his thesis titled Colonial Zimbabwe's Tobacco Industry, Global, Regional and Local Relations 1947 to 1979, the candidate examines the interplay between the global, regional and local context in which colonial Zimbabwe's post-war tobacco industry developed. It analyzes the creation of a commodity chain between the periphery and the metropole. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Sibanengi Ntube.
Candidate L. Nkomo, promoter Professor N.D. Roos, co-promoters Dr. C. Masukere and Dr. D. Patrick.
With his thesis, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Interstate Relations 1980 to 1999, the candidate contributes to scholarship on post-colonial interstate histories as he focuses on interactions between Zimbabwe and South Africa, arguing that the relations between the two states were perpetually hostile, largely the consequence of a contest over regional leadership. His thesis draws on multiple historical sources and builds on existing academic works, usually oriented towards either Zimbabwe or South Africa, by giving the subject an historical perspective and emphasizing aspects that had hitherto not been comprehensively addressed by historians. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Lottie Nkomo.
Our candidate Bitinda Nisioki, promoter Professor R. Keet, co-promoter Dr. I. Koenig.
With his thesis, Differentiating Dysfunction, Domestic Agency, Entanglement, and Mediatized Petitions for Africa's Own Solutions, the candidate attempts a partial re-entry into existing terms of observation and critique of Africa's problems or dysfunctions. Those terms which seek to calibrate the question, how does one get Africa right with African solutions. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Mutinda Nzioki.
Candidate Unilado Sechele, promoters Dr. M.J. Graham, co-promoter Professor I.R. Phimister and Dr. S. Frank.
With her thesis, Botswana-South Africa Economic Relations, a History 1966 to 2014, the candidate demonstrates that despite the entrenched belief in a post-independence economic miracle, the relationship with Pretoria was in fact one of dependency, even as Botswana sought to mitigate the hegemonic power of South Africa. By examining the relationship from Botswana's perspective and through multiple case studies, the thesis demonstrates that South Africa did not have things all its own way. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Una Sechele.
Our next candidate, Miyanda Simbabwachi, promoter Dr. L. Koorts, co-promoters Professor J.S. De Tooy and Dr. C. Holrich.
With her thesis, A History of Archives in Zambia, 1890 to 1991, the candidate linked the creation and development of archives to changing systems of government, from the British South Africa Company to the British Colonial Administration, the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, and an independent Zambia. It is the first comprehensive history of archives in Zambia from the colonial era to the 20th century, and it demonstrates that archives are not a neutral record of the past, but have their own history, which is shaped by a range of forces. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Miyanda Simbabwachi.
Doctor of Specialization, Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in child psychology. The candidate is Sharon A. Aitken, promoter Dr. P. Naidu, co-promoters Dr. A. Botha.
With her thesis titled The Psychosocial Experiences of Adolescents with Juvenile Idiopathic Arthritis, the candidate made significant contributions to the current body of knowledge regarding the multi-systemic risk and resilience processes involved during adolescent adaptation to JIA. Aitken conducted in-depth qualitative interviews with 7 adolescent parent dyads, which elicited rich, thick descriptions of their experiences. The study presented 3 main themes, namely multi-systemic risk processes, multi-systemic resilience processes, and adapting positively to JIA. The findings will enable interventions that enhance positive adaptation and well-being of individuals with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Sharon Ann Aitken.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in English, the candidate Rumbidzai D. Tivenga, promoter Professor A.I. Manatse, co-promoters Professor H. Strauss.
With her thesis, Zimbabwe Urban Grooves, Music and the Interconnections Between Youth Identities and Celebrity Culture, the candidate contributes to scholarship on interconnections between youth identities, music, and celebrity culture. The study presents the argument that interconnections between complex, everyday, local and global cultural and societal changes have contributed to Zimbabwean youth's everyday experiences, intercultural encounters, and identities that resonate and are influenced by celebrity culture and the urban grooves. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Doreen Rumbidzai Tiwenga.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in film and visual media, Rousseau MP, and the promoter is Professor R. van der Oever and Professor L. Kottels Altus, and co-promoter Professor S. Human.
With his thesis, Transformational Ethics of Film Philosophy, Thinking the Cinema Makeover, the candidate opens up a new ethical plane within the new maturing debate on film as philosophy. Thomas Wartenberg, Mount Holyoke College, Massachusetts, states in his examiner's report, "I support awarding Martin Rousseau a PhD cum laude. His dissertation exhibits an impressive breadth of knowledge and a high degree of philosophical acumen. It contains many provocative, original ideas that cast the film philosophy debate in an entirely new light. This is an excellent piece of philosophy, and as such qualifies Rousseau for his degree cum laude. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Martin Paul Rousseau."
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in philosophy, the candidate Teresa Jane Hartman, the promoter Professor B. Oliver, and Professor Johan Rousseau on behalf of Professor Olivier.
With the thesis Understanding Creative Intuition, Perspectives from Eastern and Western Philosophy, the candidate conducted a broad phenomenological investigation into the characteristics of creative intuition in the arts and sciences, insofar as this phenomenon is distinguishable from overtly rational processes such as deduction and logical analysis. Unlike most similar research, she did not restrict her attention to Western philosophy, but broadened it to include insights concerning creativity from Eastern philosophies such as Taoism and Zen Buddhism. Her research findings will be of value to teachers and students in the arts and architecture, but also to other disciplines where creativity is required. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Teresa Jane Hartman.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in psychology, the candidate Angela Francesca Panalati, promoter Professor P. Fouchier.
With a thesis, Sylvia Plath, a psychobiographical study, the candidate contributes to the exceptional scholarship within the field of international psychobiography. The candidate provides an in-depth psychological perspective on the psychosocial development and the internal family system dynamics across the lifespan of Plath, who has been hailed as one of the most influential female writers in the 20th century. This extensive and analytically rich psychobiography affirmed the importance of studying the lives of extraordinary women who use their creative genius in an attempt to address socio-historical issues. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you Dr. Angela Francesca Panelati.
Candidate Elizabeth Cornelia van Dam, promoter Professor L. Nodé.
With her thesis, Psychological and Behavioral Control in Adolescent Identity Development, the candidate utilizes a mixed methods approach to investigate how adolescents balance the experience of being controlled with the autonomy of developing an identity. Embedded in the tenets of developmental, social, and ecological psychology, the findings highlight how various gender and age groups react to various systems of control, how these reactions explain variance in identity development, and also how adolescents create pathways towards an achieved identity. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Elizabeth Cornelia van Damme.
I now call upon the Acting Dean, Theology and Religion, Professor Rantois Letsosa, to present his doctoral candidates.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer doctoral degrees on the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Theology with specialization in Biblical Spirituality. The candidate, Reader J.P., and the promoter, De Villiers.
With his thesis, Die Paulinische Mystagogie van die Liefde in 1 Corinthians, the candidate investigates Paul's use of love in 1 Corinthians to overcome bitter divisions and hostility in a specific community. The thesis proves that love runs like a golden thread through 1 Corinthians, climaxing in the beautiful hymn in 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul celebrates love as the highest of gifts, without which the spiritual journey is bound to fail. It is love that empowers a community to move away from their self-centered arrogance towards an all-consuming desire to live in the presence of God. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Jami Petrus Reader.
Doctor of Theology with specialization in Practical Theology. The candidate is Annelies Koen, and the promoter is Professor J.A. van den Berg.
With her thesis, Seksuele kuberbillebakkery en laat-adolessente, 'n prakties teologiese studie, the candidate contributes to knowledge about adolescents' involvement in sexting, adding new perspectives to the debate on sexting and the relationship between sexting and cyberbullying as potentially harmful social media interaction. With this contribution, she raises this awareness amongst parents and adolescents about the culture of sexting and provides guidance regarding responsible engagement in sexting. The researcher recommends the inclusion of a spiritual dimension to Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model to expand the understanding of sexting as a phenomenon. Dr. H.S. van der Berg also acted as co-promoter for the study. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Anneliese Koen.
For the Doctor of Theology with specialization in practical theology, the candidate, Nicolaas Jacobus Mostert, and the promoter, Professor Skuma.
Mr. Chancellor, with his thesis, Multiculturalism and Urban Congregations, the Quest for a Spatial Ecclesiology, the candidate contributes towards the quest for a spatial ecclesiology by focusing on a specific urban multicultural congregation. A strategy of attentiveness will enhance inclusivity in the congregation with its emphasis on the following practices: contact and appreciation for diversity, and understanding for God's desire for inclusivity and the development of competencies. The study concludes that multicultural congregations can be viable third spaces institutions in ethnic, complex urban context. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Nicolaas Jacobus Mostert.
Doctor of Theology with specialization in practical theology, the candidate, Annelien van Straten, and the promoter, Dr. Meyer.
With the thesis, The Role of Pastoral Counseling in Healing Spiritual Woundedness of Official First Responders, the candidate explored the nature of the spiritual woundedness of official first responders using a narrative approach to therapy and research, positioned within the paradigm of a post-foundational notion of practical theology. Findings indicate that the spiritual woundedness of official first responders are often left unrecognized and unacknowledged by mental health practitioners, but that spirituality nevertheless forms part of the official first responders' religious schemas and is a salient predictor of mental health. Therefore, it is vital to incorporate spirituality in the therapeutic process. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Annelien van Straten.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in religion studies, the candidate is Joel Mokhwati, and the professor, Professor L. Mtomban.
With his thesis, Juxtapositioning of Christianity and African Traditional Religion, a study of Christian leaders in Sangoma Wood, the candidate contributes to the broader study of religion while adding value to Christian polity and African spirituality. The study established that the juxtapositioning of Christian religion and African traditional religion served as a mechanism used by practitioners to avoid anomy. This is because their distinct African identity was diluted by the introduction of early Christianity, which did not give regard to their African spiritual heritage. Instead of abandoning their orthodox cultural practices, practitioners incorporated Christian components and as a result did not see any conflict in serving as both Christian church leaders and traditional healers. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Joel Mokhwati.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in systematic theology, I introduce Zulu Moses, and the promoter is Professor Rian Venter.
With his thesis, God's Life in Communion, J. Moltmann's Social Trinitarianism for a Post-Colonial African Theology, The candidate makes a contribution to scholarship on African theology by relating the social Trinitarianism of J. Moltmann to a description of the multifaceted post-colonial African context. Addressing the issue of an interpretation of God within conditions of suffering, he employs the Trinitarian notions of God's nearness, God's suffering, and God's relationality, and revisions the Christian understanding of God, which is not found in existing work by African theologians, and which can meaningfully interact with the multiple challenges in Africa. Mr. Chancellor, I present Dr. Moses Zulu.
Honorary qualifications awarded by the University of the Free State serve to reflect the commitment of the institution to both the academic and human projects. These qualifications are bestowed on individuals with outstanding academic track records who enjoy international recognition, or to individuals, not necessarily academics, whose accomplishments in the fields of science, arts, economics, media, culture, leadership, or education have made a difference in the world and whose influence and work may have been of benefit to the development of South Africa. I now call upon the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Robert Peacock, to introduce the recipients of an honorary qualification in his faculty. He will be followed by the Acting Dean, Professor Karen von Merle, who will introduce the honorary recipients for the Faculty of Law.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer the degree Doctor of Letters, honoris causa, to the candidate that I present to you. Jerry Mofokeng wa Mageta is an internationally known South African theatre and film artist who has served the South African entertainment industry in several fields with excellent artistic merit and dedication for over 40 years. His contribution to arts administration, his service on government panels for the arts, and his contribution to development of policies are commendable. Born in 1956, Mofokeng Mageta attended Orlando West High School in Soweto and Youth Alive Ministries in Soweto, matriculating in 1974. He acted in community theatre during the turbulent years of student unrest, and since then he has played an immense role in the development of the South African entertainment industry. In the 1990s, he went through an eclectic career spanning from teaching at his alma mater Wits to working as Associate Artistic Director at the Johannesburg Theatre, Chief Director of Mpumalanga Department of Arts, Sport and Culture, Artistic Director of Packhofs, and Artistic Director of the State Theatre in Pretoria. Mofokeng Mageta is also a freelance artist, investing his varied skills, acting, directing, writing, and teaching in the arts. As a sought-after artist, as a sought-after artist and academic holding a BA Dramatic Arts in Acting and Directing from Wits University, and an MFA in Theatre Administration, specializing in directing from Columbia University, New York, he was invited to teach and direct at Columbia University, New York on a Fulbright fellowship for 4 years from 1987 to 1991. As stage and screen actor, he was awarded for his work in several critically acclaimed films, including Cry the Beloved Country, Lord of War, Mandela and de Klerk, and the 2005 Academy Award-winning film Tsotsi. He has brought life to varied roles in film and television, including Walter Sisulu in One Man, One Vote, Tommy in Friends, Hank in Drumbeats, Induna in Rhodes, Mzwake in Insight, and Vusi in Tarzan. He was also the host of the magazine program Curious Culture. In 2006, he appeared in the miniseries When We Were Black and played the role of Nkosi in the SABC2 drama series The Mating Game in 2010. In 2013, he was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Awards for acting at the 7th Annual South African Film and Television Awards. In November of the same year, he joined the ETV soap opera Scandal in the role of crime lord Neo Moketi. He had also a starring role as Elias Matume Malema in the SABC3 sitcom Let Heaven Wait in 2013. Some major national and international awards include the African Film Legend Award by the African Film Festival 2018, the Golden Horn Award for his Lifetime Achievement 2013, a Golden Horn Award for his lead role in When We Were Black 2007, and the South African Film and Television Award SAFTAS Award as Best Actor 2018. Mr. Chancellor, I now present Dr. Jeremiah Mofokeng Mageta and request you to confer the degree Doctor of Letters Honoris Causa on him. I now call upon the Acting Dean of Law, Professor Karen van Marle, to present a candidate for the honorary qualification, Doctor of Laws.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege of requesting you to confer the degree Doctor of Laws, Honoris Causa, on the candidate that I present to you. Born and bred in the city of Roses, Bloemfontein, in 1965, Mahubi Betty Molumela returned to the Free State as prosecutor after acquiring her first general and law degrees. She later obtained LLB and LLM degrees from the UFS and a number of postgraduate diplomas from other institutions. Justice Molumela also lectured on part-time basis in the Faculty of Law between 2001 and 2003. She practiced as attorney in the Free State and later as director of various private law firms. Justice Molumela's professional career culminated in her appointment as first female judge president of the Free State Division of the High Court, only the second female in South Africa to be appointed in this capacity. In 2018, Justice Molumela was appointed to the Supreme Court of Appeal of South Africa. She has acted also as judge in the High Court, Labour Appeal Court, and the Constitutional Court, and was appointed to the Free State Bench in 2008. Her experience as presiding officer further extends to that of judge in the Military Court in 2004, and as commissioner at the Commission of Conciliation, Mediation, and Arbitration in the period 1999 to 2000. As presiding officer, she was involved in the South African Local Government Bargaining Council, the Military Arbitration Board, and Tokiso dispute resolution. The diversity of her professional development is evident from her qualification as conveyancer and a number of certificate courses in estate agency, advanced military law and human rights law, as well as postgraduate diplomas in business management and advanced labor law. Justice Molumela's commitment towards the advancement of human rights is evident from her association with organizations and associations which aim to expose discriminatory and unjust laws. She served as member of the Black Lawyers Association from 1987 to 2008, also as trustee of the Black Lawyers Association's Legal Education Center for the period 2003 to 2008, and as advisory board member of the Free State Center for Human Rights. Her involvement in the community ranges from empowering farm workers and upcoming farmers through initiatives of the Free State Rural Development Association to presentations and training on forms of business enterprises. Her involvement in the legal profession and legal community includes serving as counsellor for the Free State Law Society and as board member of the Free State School for Legal Practice in the Law Society of South Africa. Her direct involvement with the University of the Free State includes active support of the annual Koffsie Mood Competition. In 2016, she received the Chancellor's Distinguished Alumnus Award. She presently serves as the Chancellor of the Central University of Technology. Mr. Chancellor, I now present Dr. Mahuba Betty Molomela and request you to confer the degree.
Can you please convince the occupant, the Cape, that Free Staters can say good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's so unconvincing. I mean, even I am not convinced by that. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We've now come to the end of yet another inspiring graduation ceremony on this esteemed university. I missed for the first time in 9 years the April graduation period. All 4 sessions, 8 sessions, I think, Professor Peterson. And it was the first time in 9 years that had happened, and you have no idea how much I was looking forward to this graduation. It's a ceremony that I truly enjoy being a part of. I don't know what will happen to me once my tenure as Chancellor of this university comes to an end. I might end up asking Professor Peterson to keep on inviting me as a guest, just to be part of this incredible ceremony. All that I have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is to say a few thank yous. And Anton, where's Anton? Is he here? I was going to start with him with that production that he exposed us to here this morning, and say he never ceases to amaze me as well. But maybe let me start on stage, Chairperson of Council. I don't know, and maybe Professor Peterson might want to do some little bit of research. I do not know if there are chairpersons of councils who attend as many graduation ceremonies as ours does. And especially because you are not Bloemfontein based. Every time you come here is a drive from Western Joburg, and it's truly, truly appreciated. And so I really, Mr. Lowe, I want to take my hat off to you for the commitment to your role in the leadership and the governance of this institution. Thank you, sir. I'm not going to, everybody else on stage has already been acknowledged by the Vice Chancellor. Let me also to Dr. Mufokeng Wamakgeta. When I met him this morning, I told him, Urnagi mutangwa ramkhele. Lekulukuton lama kubasi elija blirbiditea. Utemula diota. And then I said, he must tell me who he is. That the Soweto in him tripped him up so badly. He really could not tell me, Rihanna, ke Mofokeng wa mang, except wa Makgetha. But Dr. Makgetha, congratulations to you, sir. Many of us feel like we know you because we've seen you on stage, we've seen you on television, we've seen you in movies. And so, you know, I'm sure many people in this audience feel like they know you already. And accepting, and I'm addressing myself to both you and Dr. Justice Molemela. When you accept an honorary doctorate, you allow yourself to be associated with a particular institution. Because this institution says, in you, it sees an individual that others must want to emulate. But by saying yes, you also say, in this institution, I'm seeing an institution whose values and norms and standards I want to lend my name to and associate myself with. And as Chancellor of this university, I am truly delighted that when this university came calling, because of how you've distinguished yourself, you could have said no. Some do say no, but you said yes. And for that, we truly appreciate that, and thank you and congratulations to you. Now I come to my little sister. She is my little sister, ladies and gentlemen, because as you know, I'm also Bloemfontein born and bred. I knew her mother, I knew as a nurse, I knew her father as a teacher, I know her family. The family that she got married into, many of you here would know that the Molemela family is a very prominent family in Bloemfontein, and it just so happens that not only did Ntate Molemela build my parents' house in 1958, he was our neighbor. So I grew up from the time I opened my eyes, Ntate Molemela was omnipresent to me. And she got married into that family, but I'm just so proud for the part of the township that she comes from is called Cape Stance. Now it's called Cape Stance because when the Capes arrived here, Trevor, when the Capes arrived here, they arrived, and historians in the room will probably know the story better than I do. After the decision has been taken that black people have to be relocated from north of the railroad track between Bloemfontein Station and Kimberley to south. So from where the ANC was formed in 1912, the decision to relocate to the other side of the railroad track. So when the Capes arrived, they were given stands, they were the first ones to be given stands on the other side of the railroad tracks. That's why it's called Cape Stance. And for a girl from Cape Stance to end up not only as a judge president of the Free State and also the Supreme Court of Appeals, as Chancellor of CUT, and now as an honorary doctorate from University of the Free State, I'm so proud of you, my sister, and congratulations, and thank you very much. Now to our guest speaker, Dr. Trevor Manuel, because 3 years ago, here I thought it was only 2 years ago, but it turns out that it was in 2016 when he became an honorary degree doctorate recipient from this university. And not only do I remember that vividly, but also at the dinner, at the Chancellor's dinner, I also still remember the message that you left us there with that evening. But I'm sure, Trevor, I speak for most of the people in this audience when I say to you that this wilderness that you say we seem to be now wandering in. Only leadership, only assertive, determined, courageous leadership can take us out of this wilderness that you say we now find ourselves wandering in. And many people in this country, Trevor, I'm kind of putting you on the spot now here. Many people in this country look to people like yourself to say, we can all see the challenges that exist within the structure, political structure of the ANC. We can all see the hurdles that are placed before the current president of this country, who has a constituency both inside the African National Congress, but also a much broader national constituency, the same way that Nelson Mandela had, where even those who are not members of the ANC choose to look to him and chose to vote for the ANC because they saw in him a person who can lead us out of this wilderness that we're wandering in. But we realize, pragmatically, we can realize that the hurdles may just be too high, even for him to get over, unless he is seriously assisted by the likes of yourself, people whose you carry scars, not only from the pre-1994 struggle, but to the roles that you played in various cabinets that you served in. And we don't know how, but somehow people like yourself have got to find their way back to the center, back to saying to him, both privately and publicly, that we are there to Martina. And without people like yourself, Trevor, you know, I mean, how the theologians here, how many years did they wander in the desert? 40 years? We might end up beating 40 years of wandering in this wilderness. And so, thank you for your message. Thank you for challenging us to remember what this constitution of ours says about us as a collective people, but most importantly, and that's the challenge that you threw at us today, as individuals as well. And we thank you for coming to share your words of wisdom with us, but we really appeal to you to begin the process of mobilization of those, the Mavosom Simangs that are starting to come out and be very vocal about what is needed in this country, to work with the current leadership and invite many people in this audience would be willing to come and serve. Many of us would do it without even being paid to do that in the best interest of this nation. Thank you very much, Dr. Manuel. Now let me come to our graduates for today. Congratulations to you all. I want to, unfortunately, there's one PhD with the external examiner who seemed determined that that PhD should be granted cum laude. And you know, who knows why it was in the end not granted cum laude. But for those on the master's degree side who got their degrees cum laude, could you please rise? As they remain standing, and this is an experiment that I've been doing for the last 9 years or so, I checked, as they remain standing, with a master's degree, I'm sure you understand, when the chancellor says, as they remain standing, you remain standing. I've been watching the race and gender distribution of the distinctions on this campus, and both at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and across faculties, one trend that I've been observing with pleasure is the gender domination by women of those who get the master's degrees. This was not the case, ladies and gentlemen, when I first arrived here 9 years ago. But also the demographics in terms of black representation of those is also something very pleasing. Transformation is indeed happening on this campus, both in race and gender terms. Congratulations to you all. Thank you very much. Can I then come to our doctorate graduates? And before I congratulate the graduates themselves, there's a few promoters that I think deserve mention. Professor Nkwani and that sellout that left this place and went somewhere else, Professor Mahloma Kulu, I noted that the three of you together in education had at least 3 PhDs that graduated. We understand how hard that is. Dr. Musia, where's Dr. Musia? Give him one. He's not here. He also 3 PhDs. Professor Fimister, as always. You know, I noted, I have my analyst who sits next to me in the person of the chairperson of council. So he also helps me to do the counting. Professor Fimister, hard work as always. Congratulations to you. And then Professor Wilson Stradom and Melanie Walker. If we counted correctly, I think it was 5 in various combinations with other co-promoters. And I know I'm never going to stop hearing about this. I can assure you what I'm going to say next, I have to say, but I regret having to say it because I'm going to hear about this for a long, long time to come. Professor Jita. 7 PhDs went across the stage today, where he was either the promoter or the co-promoter. Well done, sir. But I also realized that you went to recruit Dr. Tutugile Jita as well to help. But to be able to achieve that while serving as a dean on a full-time basis is truly remarkable. And thank you very much for the hard work and congratulations to you, sir. Thank you. So our country is in trouble. Our continent is not faring any better. Lots of the theses and dissertations that we heard about, talking about the challenges in Zimbabwe, it's not getting better there. One of the dissertations I particularly enjoyed hearing about South Africa's hegemonic relationship with Botswana and the pushback from Botswana. I like that particular one, especially because of the kind of country that Botswana is, which is one of those African countries that decided that it refuses to fall into this deep hole that some have come to call the African curse. A very successful African country. I'm a little unsure about how to treat Rwanda because of the democratic challenges that are in Rwanda. Development is there, I can appreciate, but that development at times is at the expense of the democratic ethos and values of that country. I suppose we all had this election with all the hopes and prayers that went into it. And our guest speaker challenges us all to put our shoulders to the wheel, to make it happen, for us to construct and create the future that we would want to live in. I take it as a message to myself, I'm hoping that you'll take it as a message to yourselves as well as we walk out of this graduation ceremony into whatever careers, those who are going to continue to study further, into your further studies, those who are now going out there, going to deploy. Dr. Manuel says, convert knowledge into wisdom. Convert that knowledge into courageous leadership. And let's all change the fate, not just of this country, of this region, but of this entire continent. Before I close off, let me ask you all to rise, because sitting up on the bleachers to your left, to your right, and behind you, all of you, if you can all rise, please. No, I'm talking about the graduates only. Only the graduates. I was talking to the graduates. Sitting on the bleachers to the left, to the right, and behind you are people who have walked this journey with you. Many of you would not have made it through without some of the people sitting here, and many who are not here. Those, when you started school, as you started to worship, who were part of your guidance and your companion along the path. So they clapped for you. They ululated for you as you walked across the stage. I'm now going to ask you, in the loudest voice possible, to acknowledge them and the roles and contributions that they played in your development. Over to you. I thought I said in the loudest voice possible. As you remain standing, now sitting in front of you, and also on the stage, are the people who I simply consider to be the proxies of all those who taught you from the beginning to where you are now. These are these lecturers, senior lecturers, professors, and deans. Can you also please, I know that some of them might have given you such a tough time, that what I'm going to ask you to do, you're going to do it just only out of courtesy to the Chancellor. But regardless, round of applause for them as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. You can be seated now. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of these proceedings this morning. The university takes pleasure in inviting all graduates and their guests to the H. van der Merwe Scholes Hall, which is to the west of this venue, which means when you go out, you turn left, where tea, coffee, and juice will be served. Yanni Marais, accompanied by the Graduation Instrumental Ensemble, under the direction of Anton Esterhazy, will shortly lead us in the singing of the national anthem. After that, you are requested to remain standing while the congregation is dissolved and the main and academic processions leave the hall. May you please rise. dissolve the congregation already. By virtue of the power vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby dissolve this congregation of the University of the Free State.